Welcome on inside the Business of Social podcast powered by STN Digital. I'm your host, David Brickley. Each and every show, we talk to the experts and really dig into the digital and marketing and social industry to stay up to date and be on the cutting edge of this crazy world we live in. Episode 31. This is the Reggie Miller podcast. I was looking at some of your names here. Greg Maddox, Mike Piazza, Cam Chancellor. Is he still in the Seahawks, or he retired? I think Reggie Miller is going to be, I'm a big basketball fan, but he's probably the most famous name on the list. So the Reggie Miller podcast will bring in Peter Leeb. He's the Executive Vice President, Head of Partnerships and Operations at Studio 71. He's done quite a bit in the industry so far, really a skilled marketer when it comes to brand strategy, partnerships, digital strategy, talent relations. Spent 8 years at Fox, was the VP of Global Marketing and Strategy. So this guy's marketed a ton, and he chose to go almost solely into digital and influencers and brand and content. So I think the show will be really good about someone that lives in the data and the science behind these different campaigns and what works and what doesn't, and constantly A/B testing. So I think you guys will really enjoy this one. Peter Leeb, the Executive Vice President, Head of Partnerships and Operations at Studio 71. All right, y'all. He is the EVP, Head of Partnerships and Operations at Studio 71. Peter Leeb joins us on the Business of Social. Peter, what's going on, man?
How are you? Thanks for having me. This is fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's get into it. I always ask a random question at the top of the show. And scroll on your Twitter feed. I know you're a Lakers fan. First of all, I'm a Laker fan as well, so sorry for your loss this season. But over/under one championship for LeBron James as a Laker.
I'm going with under. I hate to say that as a person born and raised in Los Angeles on the Lakers, and we got the good years of the 80s runs and Showtime, and I got the great years out of Kobe and Shaq. It just doesn't feel like it. It just feels like it's going to take way too long, and I hate to say that. So I guess I'm all of a sudden going to become a Bucks fan because I think that's...
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we'll see what happens this summer, but there's something about... I think LeBron, he brings a certain type of drama to wherever he goes, but a lot of that was masked over when he was in the finals for 9 straight years. But when he doesn't make the playoffs, now a lot of this stuff is coming out. So, like they always say, when you're winning, it's all good, but when you're losing, the skeletons start to come out.
You know what? If there's one thing I know from social platforms and LeBron, at least he's drinking some good wine at the end of the day.
Yeah, exactly. That may have been the tip for me. Well, cool, man. I want to jump into your story because, I think we originally met through a mutual friend, Kate.
Yeah.
You worked at Fox for about 8 years, and you were the VP of Global Marketing. So I really want to dig into your history on that. But let's start, I guess, first and foremost with your current position and kind of break down for the listeners what Studio 71 is all about.
I was saying it kind of stems from the fact that I think, working at a studio, both on film and television and networks, and seeing the end customer at the end of the day, you start noticing things, right? You start noticing kind of the trends of what's happening all over the world. And I think for me, the idea was content, television, film, short form, long form, mid form, plays such a role and a more pivotal role in the lives of, right, all of us, every single day on every single platform, that I essentially thought, and hedged the idea that social video, whatever social video looks like in the future, is going to continue to accelerate, I think, at rapid rates. I always say vertical, horizontal, platform 1, platform 2, platform 3. Ultimately, it'll keep figuring itself out. But we clearly see consumption habits have drastically evolved over really even the last 5 years. And that's what we do at Studio 71. That was the interesting thing for me, which is we're right now one of the largest producers and distributors of social video. I think a lot of people over the years, even before I joined, thought of it as a very heavy YouTube-centric company, YouTube content and creator company, and rightfully so. That's where the platform's kind of emerged off of. But we're producing and monetizing and working with advertisers as much on YouTube as we are on Instagram, Stories, IGTV, Twitch, TikTok, and whatever platform wants to emerge in the next 6 to 12 months.
You're so right about that. I've always said that I think people get too hung up on this is a linear TV show or is it a social video? Really, the content is always going to be the content. And whether it's on Netflix or on NBC Linear or on IGTV in a vertical format, it sounds like you're kind of in my school of thought is like, if the content's good, I like what you did there. Platform 1, platform 2, platform 3, it doesn't matter. People will come to good content.
Yeah, and I think, I was just having this conversation with some old colleagues who have now, obviously moved on to whether it's the new Disney Plus world or Netflix
Yep.
or Amazon or Hulu or YouTube or Twitter. Technology has enabled this at the end of the day. We're still operating in a storytelling fashion, right? It's just we can tell stories without the parameters and guardrails. You want to tell a 20-minute story, a 7-minute story, an 8-minute story, a 60-minute story. And I think the beauty of technology now is it's enabled that pretty seamlessly, from content production and what it now takes to make something to the distribution pipes. And to me, that's exciting. The more content, the better. At the end of the day, you said it, it's going to rise. The good stuff will rise.
And it's always been that way if you think about it, from a featured film that's 2 hours to a 30-minute sitcom to a 30-second commercial. It's just different ways of telling stories with different time limits. And it seems like all that really has changed with technology is maybe just the format. And that used to be the case with television with 4x3 set-top boxes, and then it went to widescreen 16:9. So I don't think enough people do this, but I think television really set the blueprint originally, and we're just going through that change. It just happened a lot faster than it did 20 years ago.
Yeah, it's funny. I kind of use a similar analogy all the time, which is, television, whether it's kind of the early days of broadcast or kind of the expansion in cable or pay TV or subscription now, it's taken decades, 40, 50, 60, 70 years to figure itself out, right?
Yeah.
The standardization, the way the models have operated, the changes, the proliferation of technology and what that does, it's taken those industries a long, long, long time. I think social, digital, however we want to classify it now, it's a decade or so old. And look at the scale and reach. And so I think we have a ways to go in terms of growing, both from a content standpoint and then a business and monetization standpoint across the industry right now. But I mean, we all see the numbers. The numbers don't lie. There is an incredible amount of consumption happening across the board for different audiences. And I think it's a great time to be part of the content industry.
So I would love to get your thoughts and kind of inside baseball a little bit into the industry, because spending 8 years at Fox, as the VP of global marketing, you played in that game, but you decided to go more the digital route, probably a lot sooner than maybe some of your colleagues. And now you've seen, I think, 6 conglomerates now own every television network in the world or in the country. Where do you think that's all heading, and what do you think television has to do in order to survive like the technology that we're seeing move so quickly?
It's interesting. I think in the early days of Fox, I've always kind of had this through line of digital and digital enterprise and technology and distribution across the company. And it's enabled so much, both from a marketing and a content standpoint right now. And I think it's the good and the bad of industries. Industries get disrupted. We're in a disruption period. I think we're in a very positive disruption period at the end of the day from a consumer standpoint, right, with the choices available. I don't frankly think anyone knows where it's going. I think a lot of people, we're all taking big bets. I think what Quibi is doing and kind of the thesis behind it is really interesting, right? You've got only so much time in a day. You've got segments of your day. Therefore, let's create linear narratives or live news or all the other things they're working on with the recent announcement. On the other side of the spectrum, I deal with kids under the age of, give or take, 28 years old these days. And I'm seeing every day, I hate to say it, but what the data is saying to me, like their day parts, what they're watching, the consumption time. Somebody in the gaming industry or that loves video games, whether they're consuming on YouTube or Twitch, I mean, we're talking about videos of gameplay in excess of 25, 30, 45 minutes of gameplay. That's a very different type of consumption habit than, folks we look at on Instagram that are going through beauty tutorials in a matter of minutes. So, I think I kind of look at it now as segmentation of audiences. And I think, probably a lot of the SVOD players in the market are looking at it too in terms of audience clusters, right? I just need to satisfy these types of clusters. How I satisfy them are going to be different, and technology is ultimately providing kind of that through line to get the content to them. So I think it's great. I watch a lot of different content than my wife. I'm sure you watch similar content to me, but different.
Yeah.
Right? And we're all being able to consume it on an on-demand basis, and I think that's great for us as an industry.
I like how you approach it because it seems like kind of like me, like more the data and the scientist part of it, because it really is a science if you think about, all these different platforms and where it's going. I would love to hear from you 5G. I don't think enough people are talking about that. And I think, what we saw when 4G came out was the introduction of Instagram video and Facebook video, and it really changed social as we know it. I personally think from like an ESPN Plus standpoint, a Netflix standpoint, like there's still buffering issues, there's still connection issues, and it really doesn't make that experience as clean as it used to be with your cable set-top box. But I think when 5G is at scale, it's going to make it so seamless that a lot of people are going to officially make that switch, and it should be big.
From everything I've heard in the industry, like you probably have talked to folks about, It's going to allow that cross-platform watching to kind of take off. Like the power that we're going to be able to have on mobile or tablets or whatever device you ultimately choose, I think, again, it's going to enable that much better content and storytelling for the end user. And I think we've seen it over the last 5 years. I had that same problem. I always said, right, I was still buffering 3 or 4 years ago on some of my streaming mechanisms, and it takes the enjoyment out of content, and I went back to my linear devices.
Yeah,
I can't remember the last time I truly buffered, at least at home anymore.
Yeah,
technology's enabled that. Therefore, right, you don't have to worry as much about user drop-off or churn or anything. It's now about the content and enabling that kind of stuff. So, yeah, I think I'm really, really excited, as I think the industry is, especially with a few of the big players around 5G.
Yeah, it's super close. I remember reading a story that everybody watching the Super Bowl on the CBS app in the fourth quarter, the app went down. So it's like
I think YouTube went down too. I think it was the one of the NBA playoff games last year, where all of a sudden, I think you're in the last 3 or 4 minutes, which is pretty much the only time I think you need to watch sports these days.
Exactly.
Right, and all of a sudden, there you go, streaming down. Got to go back to the linear world where it works.
Exactly. So I think, I'm super excited for 5G because I think. I agree. We're super close, but maybe we're like at 80%. And once it gets up to 99.9%, it's going to be kind of full throttle ahead. With your background, I would love to really get into the essence of marketing as a whole. I mean, how do you, whether you were working in linear, and I know I read up on you a little bit, you did some really cool things with Empire and The Simpsons and getting these different things going on a global distribution scale. But from a marketing approach, how do you personally approach marketing, and kind of what's your core belief when you're marketing a brand or a product?
Yeah, I think, I'm looking at it through a different lens these days, right? I'm looking at it from a lens of how do we help advertisers utilize social influencer marketing in ways that they're probably not thinking about today, because it's always been, and it was this way when I was on the other side, kind of the afterthought, right? We have remaining budgets. Let's throw it into influencer marketing. And I think we as an industry, and the ones who are doing it right, a lot of them are the D2C challenger brand marketplace. It's a conversation no different than any other type of media they're buying these days, right? And I think we as an industry need to be kind of pushing that ball forward and need to be thinking of it as part of the overall marketing mix right now. I don't think it's good enough, and I don't think it's being utilized in a way. And this can mean a lot of things: content production, distribution, creation of assets. It's not being utilized to its fullest capabilities right now. And I think today that's kind of where we're coming in. My team is coming in to help people, as I like to say, figure out how we take this from branded content to branded content at scale. And it could mean a lot of things to a lot of different people, but it can't be this separate siloed group anymore. I think a lot of people are starting to see that on the brand marketing side too.
Yeah.
Social, or who's your digital person. It's generalist these days.
It's all the same, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You got to know how to package a product the same way that you're marketing it, or that you're trying to reach people in media, or you're trying to build a growth strategy around user acquisition. It's got to be the same teams that are thinking about how all these engines work together. And I think more and more, kind of being on both sides now, the buying and sell side, I think I'm starting to see that more and more. I think there's a lot of interesting companies out there that are starting to create kind of call it these generalist marketing groups now, to be able to react to what the data is saying on a given time, or in real time, how the TV campaign is affecting things, how, my out-of-home is doing, how my retailer's footprint is doing. Yeah. And while you need people who are specific in some of those key fields, I think we're starting to move to a little bit more of this generalist approach.
Now, how have you seen, over the years in terms of like the rate card and what you're guaranteeing partners? It's tough. A view on Facebook is just 3 seconds. A view on linear is 15 minutes of consumption. So the metrics are kind of all over the place. But in terms of being able to report that, guarantee people a certain amount of impressions, what have you seen worked and what have you seen clients and partners really enjoy about investing and getting a return out of it?
The social industry is clearly going through some challenges. I think, outside of the obvious one, I think there's a movement towards a little bit more standardization, just like the traditional market has more and more. But I also think we're shortchanging ourselves, right? At the end of the day, the world I play in the social content world, it's tough to make content. It's tough to make good content. It's tough for that content to reach these cohorts of audiences, and there's value to it. There's tremendous value to individuals, whether you want to call them talent or influencers, creators. Talent is talent, and there's tremendous value to a lot of that stuff. And I think we as an industry are shortchanging ourselves in the sense that, we've got, the buyer side looking at very specific CPM metrics around it. Like, it's a numbers game, sure, it makes total sense, but we don't value, being a part of the traditional talent world in kind of the same way. Like, there's value to individuals and their audiences beyond what a number says. And I think that's the direction we're starting, I think, to educate folks on. And again, it's growing pain.
When you say that, you're meaning, hey, listen, we much rather target and get 50,000 impressions or views by a demo that really will potentially buy your product or want to be a part of it, rather than saying we're going to guarantee you 7.5 million impressions to an audience that is not the target.
Yeah, and I think both strategies are fine. And I think every company comes at it a little differently, and every company has many different objectives and goals to a lot of these campaigns. Let's look at the challenger brand marketplace. Like, why have they been able to succeed? Well, they kind of were forced into the idea of digital-first user acquisition strictly because I think they didn't have the funds to be able to just kind of go out and spray a message across the board. And so with all of their kind of performance and user acquisition tactics, influence marketing kind of is a big one, they're able to learn and have a really good idea of their audience before they've now gone traditional. But in order to scale, you look at Warby Parker, Casper, Rent the Runway, Glossier, brick and mortar, out of home, certain types of TV campaigns. I saw one of them sponsoring one of the major sporting events last year. Yeah. But they knew who their audience was. They didn't shortchange the fact that they spent money on understanding, their audience or the content that's going to work for the audience. And I think other brands in the marketplace are simply looking at it as a numbers game. And I think you got to look at it both ways these days.
Yeah, well, look at Wish. I mean, they built their entire $6 billion per year empire, whatever it is. I mean, on the backbone of Facebook ads. I mean, figure out what your user is. Yeah,
a lot of companies did it. I remember a company that built this. It was a cool sunglass product, a single SKU of sunglasses off of kind of cracking Facebook.
Was it Movement?
It wasn't Movement, but it was kind of a very similar product at the end of the day.
Right.
But look at it the other way. So we did a campaign with our partners at Good Mythical Morning, which is, arguably still the biggest show on YouTube, with Wix.com, the website building company, right? 6-month campaign, digital campaign. I kind of talk a lot about this in the marketplace. What happened? That campaign performed so well for Wix that a piece of content that the team built became a Super Bowl spot last year. A creator-led, or the idea of a creator-led campaign performing well and knowing their audience then easily gets translated as a Super Bowl spot. Not a Super Bowl spot that took 6 months to build and research against and focus groups and qualitative and quantitative.
Yeah.
But an actual digital campaign first that then is broadly distributed to the Super Bowl, right? And there's tremendous value clearly in something like that. So I think there's a lot of ways to kind of, as I say, skin the cat on this, on the marketplace right now. And every brand's got a slightly different objective. And, I think it's growing pains.
Absolutely. And like you said, in the past, it's like, let's spend $5 million on that Super Bowl commercial because that's what we do, without knowing, like, so social and that targeted market has enabled people to really know their audience before they go spend tens of hundreds of millions of dollars in marketing.
Oh my God, it's great.
Yeah.
I think we see a lot of these growth brands out there right now. I mean, they're testing incredible pieces of content, right, against cohorts of audiences right now, actually trying to pinpoint who they're truly trying to target. They might have an idea. I've sat in enough brand plan meetings where the audience that they're actually trying to go after, which is pretty broad in the scheme of things, is actually not the audience that wants the product.
Yeah.
And this marketplace and this social influencer marketplace allows all this testing to actually occur and the ability to widely distribute this thing. I think distribution is a great metric tactic, but there is value in making good content.
100%. I know this is somewhat of a loaded question, but if let's just make up a product. If I said, Peter, I got this product, I have no marketing, I'm going to give you $1 million. Let's market this thing as efficiently as humanly possible and get a lot of eyeballs in front of it. What's the main thing you look at, or what's your go-to strategy on something like that?
I don't need that. I don't even think I need that budget to actually get going. I know some people. I think for $25,000 or $50,000 these days, you can get a really good sense of whether your product is going to move in the marketplace and be able.
And where are you going right away to figure that out, or A/B test that?
Right to social platforms.
Yeah.
I'm testing it very efficiently across the majority of the social platforms. I still think Snap's got tremendous value on, with a lot of mobile game publisher clients of ours with transactional components. Pretty seamless if you actually use Snap.
Right.
And a lot of audiences still use it to be able to download and transact against that. I think what Instagram has come out with recently, and they've been obviously testing it, really, it seems like for the last 6 to 12 months, on a commerce engine standpoint.
Ooh, that's going to be a game changer. Yeah.
We're one click away. I've said it for the last couple of years publicly. It is QVC. It's the 2019 version of QVC.
Yeah. I love
right
that.
now. Right? We're scrolling feeds, the way the algorithm is operating. I know some people have issues with the targeting of something like that, right? It's a little Big Brother at times. But I mean, have you purchased stuff? You saw that cool jacket, the cool pair of sunglasses.
100%.
For $99.
I have artwork in my office because I was targeted a couple months ago. So.
Yeah, and it's great. It's a learning experience, and you can grow and you can adjust and you can see what message is right. Or I hate to get granular on where the links are placed or where links aren't placed, or forcing a message across the board. So I think social still has enabled so many brands, both brands and talent and creators, to grow. Like, look at what we're fueling. We're fueling new businesses, new small businesses into the kind of gig economy. That's great.
You and I get it because we live in this space, but it is kind of crazy to think about. I mean, we're not even talking about 5-10 years ago where people would spend millions upon millions of dollars and just put a billboard up on Sunset and do a magazine ad on page 247. And there's no real way to know if that resonated, if people remembered that, if there was a brand experience. Like, there's no data, which now that you can get data, and I think people like you and I that live in it, it's like, why would you not go to the place that gives you hard metrics of it, if it worked or not? I
think back to 15 years ago, like my early agency days, and all the information, research, and client conversations, even then, or at the studio. But we are in a little bit of the data paralysis standpoint too, right? I think everyone will, use the Steve Jobs, perspective on, just running creative from your gut at the same time as focus groups. And I think there's probably some, for most brands, somewhere in the middle of that. But before I spend the real dollars on any new product, I sure would love to know who my true audience is and not again that audience.
Well, I think I used this kind of joke earlier this week, I think, but it's frustrating. You come from a linear background. You know what it takes to put together a beautiful spot, and the meetings and the storyboarding and the whiteboarding and all the people that goes, and you launch this beautiful, let's say a 30-second or a minute narrative that's gorgeous, and it gets 1,000 likes on Instagram. Somebody posts an egg on Instagram, and it's the most liked photo of all time on Instagram. So it's like, from a creator standpoint, there are times, like you said, where you put together a really great spot, a really great idea, and it just doesn't resonate the same way the meme does or the pop culture thing may have randomly took off.
Yeah, and it's funny, in the early days of social, I remember a lot of discussion being around, let's just get the views and let's just boost it, right? It was before everyone caught on to growth hacking and being able to really do that. But many industries basically, have allowed headlines around that, right? The most viewed spot, the most viewed this, the most viewed that. It's easy to do. You and I could create something today and make it the most viewed, right? I'll just throw a bunch of money on it. And I think it's fine. Again, I think the distribution of good content has its place, but I think there's a lot of great opportunity to kind of build up from it right now and to explore and test different things. I mean, we're in a content creation world. Both of us are really in a content creation world right now. Yeah. And on a lot of campaigns, we're probably producing between 15 and 25 different pieces of content, very different aesthetics to the content across multiple platforms to truly see what's going to work.
Test.
And it's test, but also, I don't know, maybe half of them actually perform. Maybe maybe one. You don't know, and why risk it these days?
Yeah, I love that. So what do you think, a common mistake that brands or marketers are making that you see in our space that you think people should pay more attention to or kind of be more of a North Star for their decisions?
I think I started with this, but I think a lot of it is viewed as an afterthought. I think it's something's not working, let's throw it. It used to be something's not working, let's throw some money at digital. And everyone used the term broad, right? Well, we're talking about enterprise technology, digital media, digital content. What are we talking about? I think now it's we're still in a little bit of the same. Big campaign's not working. Let's throw it. Let's see if some influencers can really help us go. Let's still distribute it. Let's still get some eyeballs against it versus actually how do they work with your overall marketing mix? It seems like a no-brainer, but it's also the way I think a lot of brands are structured these days and where the budgets kind of fall into place, right? Having I don't even say a seat at the table. You don't even need a seat at the table. You just need to have a normal conversation on the marketing side of, let's get down to it. Like, what are we actually trying to accomplish? Are we trying to produce some high-quality content that happens to be distributed socially? Are we using creators as a means of distribution, which is starting to change based on the platforms? Are we using them to create, a unique point of view? Right? They all have different styles, aesthetics, looks. People are getting into animation, stop motion graphics. Right? We can have different types of visual effects that are affordable. So, what are we actually trying to do with making it right now? And then we can look at your overall distribution plan. But it's still a little bit of an afterthought, which is why, I think we've been successful in helping a lot of companies really curate that.
When I ask this question, does anything come to mind that like the most successful digital campaign that you've been a part of, or maybe something that you didn't know that was going to take off like it did, but holy smokes, it went crazy and you were just blown away by the numbers or the response to it?
I think the immediacy, I'm going to use an industry as the example. I think the immediacy of mobile games is extraordinary. I think a lot of the mobile game publishers, like, Scopely as an example, you see, they have one goal for the most part, all of them, and one goal only, which is get this game in the top of the charts immediately, right? Because the long tail of what that impact does, it actually reminds me a little bit about the film business, let's call it a decade ago, right? You needed to, opening weekend, opening night, everybody was waiting for, let's even get past the phone call, the facts, right? Yep. Some of the digital numbers, because you could extrapolate all your formulas based on what box office number happened over the weekend.
Even if the movie wasn't that strong, if you had a solid box office opening weekend, it's going to perform. You're going to make money.
You're going to make money, but you also know, right? There's models behind it. You knew what you had to do. You knew if you could pull back money or go all in on something like that, right? It was was a prediction vehicle for all of that. What's happening in the mobile game space, I think, is it mirrors that kind of event idea, like a good movie where they really put it all up front, right? They're trying to drive those acquisitions, they're trying to drive those downloads. It fuels, whether it's console and DLC or microtransactions and game transactions and so forth, it fuels that vehicle. So I think as an industry, it's fascinating what's happening.
Well, and that whole mindset of let's just get someone to download the app, and then to your point, inside the app, once they get addicted to it, let's get the microtransactions going. Oh, you want that shield, or you want to play a little bit longer? Oh, you don't want ads? Okay. It's going to cost you upload $25 to your account. You can buy some coins to do that.
Well, right. Same thing. Get me into the movie theater and let me make money off popcorn and drinks. Get me into this incredible experience that was just marketed to me, just like an event at scale. Get me into that garden, and wow, we've just seen a lot of reports lately about how all these algorithms are built and the addiction to a lot of the platforms or hardware on your phone and so forth. I think it's incredible what's happening in the gaming industry.
So since you deal with this a lot in your day-to-day from an influencer standpoint, we talk about a lot on this show, last couple episodes, how influencer is a bad word. And the first time you hear influencer, it's you think of Kim Kardashian or Kendall Jenner. Yeah. But it definitely is. It's something funny. We mentioned this a lot on the show too. The Fire Festival documentary has really the influencer word is now, I think, more in our culture, and people understand kind of, oh wow, they made a splash by doing this whole orange tile thing. But we'd love to just get your overall thoughts on the state of influencers right now, how best to utilize them, and how you've seen success with them.
Yeah, I think I started at Studio 71 about a little over 2 years ago. I think we're give or take a $3 billion marketplace. I think today we're closing in, if not at 6 or have passed $6 billion.
Man,
it's tremendous growth. I mean, it just shows people are buying into it. Fire Festival aside, it's all about the execution.
Exactly.
The idea of influencer marketing worked, right? Yep. We're even seeing people move towards, I was talking at Sundance about this, whether you like it or not, the idea of artificial influencers, it's an interesting topic, an interesting gimmick. Yeah. I think the challenge right now is the buyer side has to watch the content, right? People have to watch and understand the content that they're getting into right now, right? A lot of brands still have heavy guardrails, which I can very much understand, specific ways of handling it, and maybe it's right for them and maybe it's not right for them. But I don't also want to say...
And sorry to interrupt, but what do you mean by that? Just not being genuine to that influencer's audience and kind of...
100%. Very limiting in the creative, I think what I learned from television, you let the creators of shows create. They brought in the audience. They know what the audience wants at the end of the day. And if you can't allow them flexibility within reason, then it's probably not the right show, talent, creator to be a part of right now. And I think a lot of what's happening is because it's a numbers game, right? Because we're focused on that, whether you're choosing a big creator, a mid-sized creator, a nano creator, a fake creator, whatever you want to call it, you on the buyer side, on the brand side, we've got to start watching the content we're a part of, right? You don't buy into a show like Modern Family or Big Bang Theory or The Walking Dead without somebody having watched it. You know the content you're getting at an FX versus another network that kind of probably skews very different from them. And I think we need, as an industry on influencer and social, to kind of adapt similar principles, which is...
It's lazy marketing, it's lazy advertising,
Yeah, and I see it every single day. I work with Fortune 500 brands down to direct-to-consumer brands. The people who are making great content with us are the ones that say, I love that person for this reason because I've watched their content. This is the format that I'm buying into because I watched the content. Not, this is, this in cumulative is going to get me 75 million views at this rate. Oh, by the way, I don't like the type of content they make. We got to move beyond that.
I've brought this example up before too, but one of my favorite recent examples of a brand partnership was Fitbit did something with Inside the NBA, and they just made this segment where they tracked Charles Barkley's steps over the course of the night, and they're laughing at him, and they had a time lapse of him just sitting down the whole time. But it's just like, it was so organic, and I'm laughing as a sports fan, and I love that show, and I love hearing from Charles, and I love how they make fun of him. And at no point did I feel like Fitbit is trying to shove this product down my throat. And I think that's just such an easy concept to comprehend, but it just isn't followed, like you said, by most brands, I would say.
That's a great example. Like,
Yeah.
you got to have the trust on both sides that they're not going to tarnish your brand. And at the end of the day,
Yeah.
you know what? That group, the professionals at it, and it makes for, it's not even content, it's just part of the storyline to everything, which is why it's so good. I think that is a great example. I mean, we just ran a campaign with U.S. Marines. I'll have to send it to you after this podcast.
Yeah.
That was all about the training, the routines, kind of, that any Marine goes through. It was creator driven, but it's intense. Like, I mean, this is,
and it's valuable content. Like, people get value out of it.
Valuable content, and it also feels like, you or I are going through this, right? The training day in and day out to be a Marine. I mean, it's extraordinary. Yes, they're quote creators, but it's specific creators who make content that's suited for this. Their style of the way they shoot was suited for this, and I think you wouldn't even you make the association, but it's not like the brand is in your face anymore.
Yep. All right, so I know we got to get you out of here, so some rapid fire here to wrap up. What is the one social or marketing tool that you cannot live without?
God, that's such a good question. It's not even rapid fire anymore. To me, it's not even the tool; it's the platform. I'm personally just obsessed with Twitter right now. I mean, where I get my information, where my communication is coming from. I never thought I'd be communicating with people more on Twitter as a messaging vehicle than my own email.
That's awesome. I rank in order for you because I think you're digging into the science behind the data for you, for brand partnerships and your day-to-day. In order of importance: Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, YouTube.
Every brand, every industry, completely different ranking. Beauty, Instagram focused, direct to consumer right now, YouTube focused and trackable, mobile game companies, I think still heavy emphasis now.
Awesome. In our industry, FOMO is a major thing. Well, how do you keep up? I mean, our industry moves so quickly. What do you do to kind of stay on the cutting edge and stay ahead of it?
The old school way of talking to people. I think I probably talk to 20 to 25 clients of all different magnitudes a day, and hopefully another 20 people across the industry. And it's everybody from senior executives down to an assistant or coordinator who are using these products every single day, because we all know at senior levels, everyone has other things to worry about. Like, let's get into the people that are actually watching and engaging in this stuff.
That's so smart. I think the way I built my business too was just from listening to your market, trying to download every breakfast, every coffee, every phone call. If you could take a little something away from it, you start to build up this knowledge, and you can shift a lot faster if you just have active listening, which is like, it's a skill to be an active listener and apply that the next day type deal.
It's funny. I'll always remember my first boss. I was working on Ford Motors, and he called me and he said, "How's it going?" Like week one, fresh out of college. "Oh, it's good. This is what we're working on." He's like, "No, how's it going? How's the economy going? How's the economy affecting our business? How does that affect the next thing?" Right? And it starts making you think there's so much that goes on a macro and micro level that impacts your specific business today. That's where I go back to social media. Like, my Twitter feed is folks like you that I enjoy seeing as an industry, and then completely opposite people that just are thinking about things differently.
It's awesome. What inspires you? What's your why and why you do what you do?
I think change. Every day is something different. We're changing as a society, and then as an industry.
Which, by the way, a lot of people hate that. So you have to make sure you enjoy that before you get into this industry.
Hey, you got to play in the gray space, right? I don't think it's black and white anymore, and I think we're all trying to build at the end of the day. And I think waking up every single morning to something very different, and I know I'm going to wake up to something I didn't expect. It's the good and the bad, but it's exciting.
I'm stealing that. You got to play in the gray space. I like that. Guilty social follow.
Guilty social follow. God, I'm trying to think who I would. I don't know if it's guilty, but it definitely is not my cup of tea. I am pretty obsessed with Glossier's business and that beauty space right now of what's going on. Follow a lot, and therefore I get a lot of ads that definitely should not be for me.
Yeah, they're trying to target you, yeah.
I think it's a very interesting marketplace.
Any, like, I guess, overall advice for, there's so many people in our industry that are focused on making good branded content. Since you do it like every single day, just a main piece of advice for people that are trying to do that the right way.
Know what you're getting into. Know what you're signing up for and owning it, and don't second guess yourself on it.
Beautiful. Last question for you, man. I always ask at the end of the program if you can recommend anyone in your network that you think would provide value or my listeners would enjoy hearing from. Anybody come to mind that I should reach out to or try to get on the show?
I'll introduce you because I talk about the gaming industry. Talk to Andy Kleiman, who started a company called Wonder that is really trying to revolutionize that industry. He's actually at Patel right now. I saw a feed before I came here, so that's a good
right on, man. Well, hey, man, thank you so much for the time. That was amazing. Peter Leeb, everything you're over doing at Studio 71, but thanks so much, man. I appreciate it.
Good to see you. Thanks for having me.
All right, Peter, thanks.
Bye.
There he is, Peter Leeb, playing the gray space. I remember when Ken Gibbs Jr. was on here from BET, and he said, what was gospel today can be blasphemous tomorrow. I stole that line. I use that a lot. But you got to play in the gray area. You got to enjoy playing in the gray area as well, as things move so quickly in this industry. And he enjoys waking up every day not knowing exactly what's going to happen on that Monday or Tuesday. And I'm the same way. I'm sure a lot of you guys out there listening, like, you'll drive yourself insane if you don't enjoy part of that. So that was a really interesting show. You can just tell, man. You can tell that he really digs the data and the science and doesn't, just because he believes one thing doesn't mean that he makes that part of his strategy. He wants to actually test it, and every brand's different. And you guys hear this a lot. If you guys have been listening for 31 some odd episodes now, it's amazing. But the number one piece of feedback we get is, like, just be genuine to the audience. If you're working with an influencer, let them create the content because they know their audience better than anybody. If you're going to put your product on a network or a distribution channel, make sure that they're involved in that because nobody likes to be sold to. So the more organic and genuine you can be with that, I think overall, the more success you will have. So good stuff. Once again, episode 31 with Peter Leeb on the Business of Social podcast. I want to thank David Furker. I want to thank Lauren, Will Kelly. And this is officially the last episode. Auntie Lightning behind the scenes. What is going to happen? This is it. 31 may be it. If you guys, the pod squad hasn't figured out how to record this thing. There's going to be a lot of audio technical difficulties potentially. But I have faith. But thank you so much, Auntie, for all that you've done to help launch this show. Really, man, we had an idea, I don't know, about a year ago, and 31 episodes later, and we're looking forward to episode 100. Maybe we'll bring Auntie back after 25 episodes, like an anniversary special or something. Thanks so much for listening. As always, appreciate your time, value your time. If you guys enjoy the show, make sure to go to iTunes, rate us 5 stars, go to YouTube, subscribe so you get the second these shows come out, you'll get that subscriber notification. Once again, my name is David Brickley. This is the Business of Social podcast powered by STN Digital.